Welcome back to the Marvel Timeline Rewatch, where we cover all the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, one-shots, TVs, and shorts. This week we have Ant-Man, directed by Peyton Reed, starring Paul Rudd, Michael Douglas, Evangeline Lilly, and Corey Stoll. Released on July 17th, 2015, and the timeline date is July 17th, 2015, until August 4th, 2015, by the time we get to the end of the post-credits.
Sure.
As always, my name is Justin, here with my co-host, Jacob. How are you doing?
Yeah, excited to kick off season 3 with another movie that is also the title of the superhero, although this is much better than Thor, so it's not just...
Thor.
Yeah, Ant-Man, I don't know, sounds better as a movie title than Thor did, but...
The more, like, when these came out, I was just like, oh yeah, Ant-Man, Thor, Captain America, great. Or Iron Man, whatever.
Yeah.
But now, like, we get into, like, Iron Man 3, or, like, Captain America, the Winter Soldier. It's like Ant-Man.
There needs to be a qualifier. Yeah.
And the Wasp.
Yeah.
Quantumania.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's definitely interesting. Yeah, as always, guys, be sure to subscribe to our podcast wherever you get your podcast. Be sure to leave us a rating if you can. Leave us a comment if you want. We will talk about all the good comments on there, hopefully. Yeah. And if you want to get in touch with us, reach out to us on social media at Timeline Rewatch. And you can email us, timelinerewatch@gmail.com. So let's get into 5 fun facts of the movie. So I just looked at these right before we started recording because I did not prepare for this.
Perfect.
When Paul Rudd told his 9-year-old son he was going to be Ant-Man, his son said, "Wow, I can't wait to see how stupid that'll be." Because Paul Rudd plays a lot of dumb characters.
Right.
Luis, played by Michael Pena, was based on a real friend of Pena, Pablo, who is a minor criminal and talks just as rapidly as Luis does.
That is awesome.
The Falcon's role in the plot came about after Adam McKay and Paul Rudd went to Captain America the Winter Soldier and fell in love with the character. They casually suggested working him into the plot, and Kevin Feige informed them that it would actually make perfect sense since Falcon is now living in the new Avengers compound.
Right, which I think we referenced this before, but this is why Ant-Man had to come after Age of Ultron, because Falcon didn't become an Avenger, in air quotes, until after the end of Age of Ultron.
This wasn't even part of the plot until after Age of Ultron.
Exactly.
Yeah. So according to Michael Douglas, the costume for Paul Rudd had to be altered because of his muscles. Rudd actually went through extensive training and worked with a gymnast and stuff for this movie and got a little too ripped, so they had to soften up his costume.
Oh, interesting. There is that one scene. It's one scene where he's shirtless, but I didn't look at that and go, "Oh, he's ripped." But okay,
muscular doesn't mean ripped.
That's fair.
I said ripped, but yeah.
I mean, you're a superhero. You have to have some form of physical strength, so dexterity.
Yeah. So the original director, Edgar Wright, he actually left. I'll explain why. Is a big fan of Ant-Man and actually proposed the film to Marvel back in 2003 to make Ant-Man.
Sure.
Describing it as an action-adventure comedy across genre action and a special effects bonanza. He had been developing the movie since then, shooting a test reel and hiring the cast, and was close to begin shooting the movie. However, in 2014, he dropped out due to creative differences with Disney, which had bought out Marvel Studios 5 years prior.
So interesting. I wonder what the creative difference was.
You always hear creative differences.
I know, and it normally means there's like some little thing that they wanted to do. Well, and then, I mean, I don't know. For so long, there was swearing, but not like intense swearing until the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. So I wonder if it was something along those lines. Normally, humor and language kind of play well together, but...
So Ant-Man also, with Paul Rudd being in it, brings in your third Parks and Recreation character into the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yes.
Later, we will see a fourth one come in, and then eventually a fifth one who has not made it onto screen yet.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for Adam Scott to join, maybe Rob Lowe to join, maybe Ann Pollard to join.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if you're listening to us, you're not listening.
It's never
to us.
too late.
It's never too late.
I think that is something funny though, because I think you do hear celebrities talk about, and not celebrities, but like actors and actresses, like once you've made a Marvel movie or like a Disney movie, so to speak, then you've like cemented your legacy,
Yeah.
so to speak. And like I don't know, I think it was like Harrison Ford was like that will be the crowning jewel if I can be in like a Marvel movie, and
And now he will be.
and now he will be. So yeah, I think that's a large appeal for
And
some of these.
cemented my legacy. I was only in Star Wars and Indiana Jones.
Okay, he's an exception, but I'm saying like I don't know. There's some people like Chris Pratt. I feel like this is a good one. Like put his pin in
Yeah.
Star-Lord, and then kind of make a name for yourself there. But
you also, I feel like if you join a Marvel movie, you are dubbed
stuck.
that person forever.
Yes.
Chris Evans will always forever be Captain America.
Well, and I think Scarlett Johansson talked about that somewhat with her Black Widow movie. It's
Yeah.
like at some point you want to be done and move on, but it's like you are pinned in as Black Widow
Yeah,
until they say
Disney
you're done.
sucks your soul.
Like, yeah, so it's a double-edged sword. But yeah, I feel like nowadays it's like a lot of these like
You're starting to
actors
see a
and
lot of
actresses
actors
at least make a cameo
Yeah.
in the movie. So yeah,
Yeah, like Bill Murray.
exactly, make
And
a cameo in it.
guys, I'm sorry if you haven't watched Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania yet. It's on Disney Plus right now. Go
Right.
watch it because we're gonna start referencing things now because it's available to everybody.
Yep.
It's on DVD. It's on the streaming platforms where you'd watch all of these movies anyway. So if we start making the references, Bill Murray is in Quantumania.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic.
Yep.
So let's talk about this movie that we did not fully prepare for. But hey, it should be good. Anyway.
We're 2 seasons in now completely, and I think we're starting to get in a groove. And
Yeah,
at least for me, like I feel like I can watch the movie and then like hit the important notes.
Look,
and
I watched
talk
this movie
about them.
16 hours ago, so
Yeah.
we'll see how much I remember of
Yep.
it. I was also trying to create a fantasy football league, but it's beside the point.
No, and going back and watching some of these, like obviously this is not the first time nor the second time I've watched some of these movies.
Yeah.
So
I will
you pick
admit,
up on little things.
This
but-
is probably only the third time I've ever watched Ant-Man.
yeah, I don't think I've
Maybe
watched
the
it.
second.
I know I've watched it at least twice before
That's
this time.
But because I watched it originally, then I watched it with my wife when we started it all during the pandemic, and now this is the third time.
Yeah, this is probably my third or fourth time watching it, but I still picked up on things.
I don't have as good of notes as I usually do
Mhm.
because my wife didn't watch it. She doesn't like the Ant-Man series. She loves Paul Rudd, but doesn't watch the Ant-Man series. I don't get it. So I'm sorry, I don't have all the cool, fascinating notes that I would normally have. So
I think we'll make it.
I did do my little meta thing again. I brought in AI to talk about this episode.
Okay, this is going to be a thing now. Okay.
So it's introduced into the Marvel
Yep.
Cinematic Universe
It's in
with
there now.
Ultron. I can start using ChatGPT again.
Yep.
So
Okay.
all right. I didn't use it for everything.
No, that's fine.
That's not where I found my fun facts. I do want to talk about a couple of inconsistencies that
Sure.
kind of don't make a lot of sense. Like time travel doesn't really make sense in the quantum realm. And we talked about this in Quantumania, where when they finally got out of the quantum realm, how come everybody outside the quantum realm didn't age? When Sky got sucked into there, he came back out like at the same exact instance.
Yeah.
So that was interesting.
And I think Hank says in the beginning of the movie, like the quantum realm is something that exists outside of space and time. Now, why that doesn't mean that time elapses normally while you're in there? Like that part I don't know.
How come he could hear Cassie in the quantum realm, but they couldn't hear everyone else outside of the quantum realm?
Well, and I mean, this is fast forwarding to the end of the movie, but that quantum realm, if he was actually in the quantum realm, did not look anything like what they go to in Quantumania.
When he got all the way deep into it before he came out of it, no, I agree with you.
Yeah.
But when he was getting sucked into it, I was like, this is a lot of the same visuals as Quantumania.
They hit that like it almost looked like a nucleus or an atom, like that.
Once they hit that
thing, it
was
looked
done.
similar. But then he kept going farther and farther, and then when you got to like the pane of glass kind of thing, I was like, I don't look like anything like Quantumania. So I don't know. Maybe he went deeper. Maybe he didn't go as deep. Because in Quantumania, they like fly through straight to the quantum realm. So
yeah.
But I digress. That's the end of the movie.
How come the Avengers headquarters was an ant could get and break into the Avengers headquarters?
Well,
that's some pretty bad security.
Well, I think it's reasonable. Like, were you expecting a guy to shrink down to the size of an ant? Like,
I mean, I guess,
I mean,
but
you're prepared for all known vulnerabilities. You don't know
when
that a
you have
guy's going to
just
shrink
fought
down to an ant.
Ultron, you have fought alien life forms.
Now, I will say, I'm sure they did something to detect super speed, but I'm sure they didn't think a guy was going to shrink down to the size of an ant.
I mean, the Falcon was able to detect a lot of things.
He was
Able to see him at least until he destroyed his suit. But
yeah,
the last thing I have here was there was a lot of face scanners, fingerprint scanners that
Yes.
was easily able to get around by like, I don't know, disabling the power. What kind of security system is that?
that's a fair point. I mean, I don't know. Everything runs off electricity and batteries. Like it. Sometimes it is that simple. Like,
Sometimes technology just sucks.
I mean, it's got to get power from somewhere. You take out the power, it's not going to do anything. So, I don't know.
So we start back. We start the movie off with Hank, with the event. With Shield,
Yeah.
and they wanted to use his technology. He tries to resign, and Howard Stark says, "No,
Yeah.
no, I don't accept that."
Formally, no.
Yeah, formally no. He does leave leave Shield, because they want his technology, his shrinking technology. Then they go into where like Darren Cross is the protege, is talking about the Iron Man suit, and not. Oh my god, the Ant-Man suit.
Yep.
And yeah, the beginning of the movie, it was explaining what was going on. Ant-Man in the 80s with Hank Pym, who interestingly enough was actually the first Avenger.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. I think that's why they had to do a little bit of this cleanup in the beginning, because for the comic book people, like Hank Pym was S.H.I.E.L.D., he was an Avenger, he was the one that created Ultron, like he did all these things that have since transpired, and he's never been a part of it. So I feel like you had to have that little rub in the beginning of like, all right, this is why the Hank Pym has not been involved in any of this, and it's because, he lost his wife, and they just wanted to use him for his technology and all this, so.
Yeah. So Hank ends up resigning from his company, Pym Technologies, because he finds out that Darren Cross is trying to duplicate.
Well, he
that
didn't get
same-
resigned, he got kicked out. Because
because he wouldn't give up his
right,
technology.
and the board voted, and his
Yeah.
daughter Janet was the final vote to kick him out. Or Hope, sorry, Janet's his wife. Hope was the final vote to kick him out. But you kind of realize those two have been working together. So
Yeah. So okay, so this then leads you to Paul Rudd, where he's in prison for grand theft, I think, or some kind of robbery,
burglary. Well, because they made that distinction. He was like, I don't do violence, so it was this and not this. I can't remember which one. Robbery or burglary.
They
One
talk
of them has
about
to do
it.
with intimidation.
He
or
talks about
violence.
it with He talks about it because he gets fired from Baskin Robbins, his first job. He worked there for a couple hours, and then he gets fired because they find out that he's a felon. And he was like, but it's not violent. It wasn't a violent crime. And so that was interesting, which they actually referenced that in Quantumania, which was kind of funny too.
I think it's funny that they're like, the manager was like, well, Baskin Robbins knows. They know all. And then later Luis is like, yeah, Baskin Robbins knows all, man. Like, it's like this known thing that Baskin Robbins has this like sleuth detection thing. But
so Luis, his friend from prison, was it?
It was his cellmate.
His cellmate,
Yeah.
Were they friends outside of prison? No, probably not.
No, I think they were friends because they were cellmates, and I assume they stayed in contact when Luis got out of prison.
So Luis finds that Scott is upset about getting fired, needs the money, etc., because his ex-wife is now dating a cop.
Yep.
Engaged to a cop and then they're all living together with his daughter Cassie. He's upset about that also. So Luis convinces Scott to be part of this robbery at this fancy house.
Yep.
Which we find out Luis always hears things through the rumor mill.
Yes.
And he goes on this long tangent and talks really, really fast. And it's like Scott's like, dude, no, get to the actual story. Like, what are you talking about? And we end up finding out that Hank actually plants this rumor to get robbed.
Yeah.
And to get Scott to rob him. And he watches him all through that robbery through cameras and everything. just to see how he does it and
Right.
figures it out. So Scott gets all the way through all these vaults, including fingerprint scanners, everything, just to find the Ant-Man suit. It's like it's some biker suit, like some
Yep.
old biker suit. Ends up stealing it. I don't know why he would have just stolen it, but why not just leave it and get out of there? But I guess if it's in the safe, it's probably worth something.
Exactly. Yeah.
So steals it, ends up finding. Then he puts it on and ends up shrinking himself into the tub. And Luis is about to go take a bath, and he's like, "I don't want to see this." And
Yeah.
you see a lot of cool action shots of him, and a lot like in the party, almost getting stepped on the record, almost getting eaten by a mouse or a rat.
Yeah, something like
I guess
that.
it was San Francisco. It could have been a rat.
Yeah.
And that's the other interesting thing. You don't see. You mostly see these movies on the East Coast or in LA. And this one was in San Francisco. So this is the first movie in San Francisco, which was interesting. Yeah. Any comments, notes?
No. I mean, it's pretty straightforward up to this point. I think I love the camera work that they do with Luis when he's telling the story, because the people's mouths line up with he is saying when he's saying it. And I don't know why I think that's so cool, but it is.
I was just thinking about how they probably had to hire actors and actresses that could lip sync like that.
Yeah. Yep.
And like listen to it and then just get it right with basically not hearing anything. Probably they might have played audio of it and just cut that part of the audio out so that they can sit there and talk. But
right.
God, matching up.
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty cool. And then all the camera work as well, like you were talking about when Ant-Man does shrink, and this thought that you are now I don't know, like obviously an ant, but like very tiny when everything else around you is big, and how you do that with cinema, I don't know. It's been obviously done before with like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I just thought this was very well done.
Yeah. So we find out that Hank set him up and then breaks him out of jail.
Yeah.
Who he's actually arrested by.
Well, Hope set him up to get arrested, but Hank breaks him out.
Oh, Hope set him up? I missed that.
She says that later in the movie. She goes, I got you arrested because she wanted to have the suit. She wanted to be the one to do all of it. And then
he was trying to return the suit.
He was trying to return the suit, yep. And then when Hank said, no, Scott's going to do it, she got mad and then had him arrested, knowing he was going to return the suit. So then she had him arrested, and then Hank breaks him out, and then she eventually
he was also
reconciles.
Hank was talking to Scott in the suit.
Yes.
And like freaking him out.
Yep.
And yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Yep.
I must have missed that part. So, he gets arrested by his ex-wife's fiance, which is he's on one this entire movie.
About that
Hank,
guy
about Scott, and I get it. Your fiance's ex-husband and father of your soon-to-be stepchild is a criminal, and you're a cop.
Right.
Like I get it, but like, good God,
and
give him a break.
I was gonna say, I get his importance in the movie. Nobody likes that kind of character, so, and that's what he was made to be. He was supposed to be the character everybody's like mildly annoyed with. So.
Yeah. So what even comes up next?
Yeah, so I mean the ants break him out of prison, and he goes back to, well, he passes out on the flight back, riding on the back of the ant. He passes out, wakes up at Hank Pym's house, and then that's when it kind of kicks off of like, all right, this is going to be our plan. This is what Cross is doing. This is why we need to stop him.
Why we need you. Why
Yes.
I have to train you specifically.
Exactly.
And Hope's like, I could just go in there. Like, I know everything there.
Right.
Like, I can do this. And Hank freaks out and was like, no, like, we need you to still be closest to Cross. And then it turns out that Hank doesn't want to lose Hope.
Exactly.
And Scott is expendable.
He is, yeah. And I think Hank's more honest about that towards the end. It's like, well, you know, if this all went south, like, you've been to prison,
I can lose you.
And you could be the perfect person to pawn this off on. Like,
yeah.
So, because Hank is very selfish in a certain respect of like, he wants what he wants, and the end goal is, you know, stopping people from using his technology, and it's trying to save Janet. So,
yeah,
as long as he can accomplish those two things in life, then he'll be fine.
And in this whole training process, they talk about the quantum realm.
They do, yeah.
Mention
About going subatomic and
yeah,
yeah.
and of course they mention that. So why would they just mention it and then never
exactly
bring it back up in the movie?
Yep.
So yeah, Janet goes subatomic to destroy a missile that's coming towards the United States because Ant-Man, Hank, could not get into it, so she goes subatomic to rip it apart and send it back into the water, and then getting stuck into the quantum realm, where we find her later in Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yep.
Yeah, so they go through all this sorts of training. Scott finally gets it. They do need something out of the event, out of the Avengers complex, who we thought was just Stark Industries, like a was not a workshop, but like
just like a storage facility
Yeah,
almost,
a
because
facility.
Hank said it's just like he's like they've just put it into storage. So
yeah. What was it exactly that they
I
were
think it
looking
was
for?
like some kind of reactor that they had to shrink to put in
Oh.
the server stack to kind of make it all go
basically
away.
shrank everything at the end, wasn't it?
I think that
was
yes,
it, right?
Yes.
Basically shrank the entire building
Mhm.
into the quantum realm.
Yeah, into nothing.
Well, we assume nothing.
Yeah, assume nothing. It went somewhere.
Probably the quantum realm somewhere. It
Yep.
would have been funny actually if
they went back to
that
it.
building was in the quantum realm.
Well, because they
Quantumania.
also blew it up, so
That is true.
so it might have just been a bunch of just debris.
Yeah. That's fair.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the big Ant-Man Falcon
Yes.
battle,
Yes.
where he's flying in and realizes that it's no longer just a Stark storage facility, that it's
Right.
the new Avengers compound, and he's like, guys, what the heck? And they're trying to get him out, and he's like, no, I think I got this.
Mhm.
Anyway, it looks like nobody's home. Well, Falcon's home.
Yeah.
And they do this whole battle, and this is where Falcon gets embarrassed because he got beat up by Ant-Man, and he's just like, please, nobody tell Steve if this ever happened. I don't.
Yeah.
He does not need to know this, which is really funny because he's still looking for Steve's approval.
Yes.
To him,
Yeah.
Steve is still that superhero that he aspires to be,
Right.
and he's finally on the team. He doesn't want to ruin his shot because he let Ant-Man get away.
Yeah.
And he doesn't even realize that he stole anything yet.
Right.
So they finally get it. Hank is like berating him because he jeopardized the whole mission and the suit and him, and Scott's just like, well, I got it, and puts down the reactor, and they're like, oh, well, good job. And Hope's like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, did you compliment him?
Yeah. It was a very like an interesting start to Hank and Scott's relationship, because Hank was like all on board for him, and then the second he did something Hank didn't want him to do, like Hank just like snapped at him, like he was messing with the regulator when he goes through with destroying the
And Scott's not a dumb dude. Scott's
no, he's
actually
not.
like really intelligent.
He is super intelligent.
Did they ever
so.
talk about what he did before he was just a petty criminal?
No, not that I remember. Because he's good with electronics. He's like you can see him soldering things and
and
he's
repairing good
things,
at
so.
safe cracking and
Yeah.
stuff too. So interesting. I'll have to go back and look at that.
Yeah.
So yeah, this goes pretty much right
insane.
into the plan
Yep.
of breaking into PIM Technologies, which Cross is also working on it. He's starting to, or he had already started to perfect the shrinking technology.
Yep.
And finally got a goat. He had been shrinking everybody into oblivion and squishing them basically, but now he finally shrank a goat. So he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna sell it." Brings in some members of Hydra to come in and buy the technology off of him, and he was like, "By the way, if you want the particles, you have to come back to me still."
Which, again, at this point, this is after Captain America: The Winter Soldier, so Shield and Hydra have their thing. Hydra splits, and then now Shield is back, and then obviously now Hydra is back because they're buying.
Do we ever
stuff
see
from...
anything about Hydra again?
I don't think so. Not that I remember.
So this is a part where,
unless it's in Civil War, I don't.
we'll have
No,
to keep a
'cause
lookout
that-
on that.
Because I don't know.
We'll have to keep a lookout on that
Yeah.
to see if Hydra actually does come back, because I don't think they do.
Yeah.
I mean, there's villainy out there, but I
But
don't
it's
think it's
not
like
like
Hydra
Hydra.
villainy.
Yeah.
There's just people that now hate the Avengers.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's
Hmm.
an interesting point. But yeah, that whole thing, and like leading up to that point, you could tell that something wasn't quite right with Darren Cross, and then he like kills one of the people that are interested in his technology from the very beginning.
The board member.
Yeah, because he
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, this is not going to do anything. Whatever."
Yeah,
He kills him in the
you
bathroom.
immediately knew he was a villain at
Yeah,
that point.
and like, and you could tell that like just in his mind there wasn't something right, and that's what Hank kind of alluded to later. Is he was like, "I saw too much of myself in you," and you could just, and like Hope talks about him being sick, and like that the particles have actually affected his brain. All these particles that he's been trying to work on has, messed with his mind, and yeah, dude's a loose cannon.
Yeah. Well, they were talking about there was reports that this movie was actually supposed to focus on the original Ant-Man with Hank, but I guess in the comics or something like that, Hank had like multiple, well, not multiple personalities, but he started having different episodes,
Sure.
and because of the particles and everything, and there was a lot of like family abuse and stuff like that, and they were like, it's not really family friendly.
Yeah.
So let's bring in Scott.
That's a fair point. And I think what's interesting is Hank makes reference to this too, because Scott says, well, why don't you just get back in the suit and do it?
Yeah.
And Hank's like, well, it's affected me too much. Like, if I go back into it, it'll make me worse. But then, like, is that something that Scott's going to have to face
I was
later
just
on
thinking
down
about
the
that. I was
line?
like, are we going to see this from
'Cause
Scott?
they really don't talk about it after that. So is it more, was Hank saying that as a cover up for like just mentally and emotionally I can't get back in that suit
Because
because
of
the
hope.
last time I wore it I lost Janet? Or
Oh,
is
yeah,
it
Janet, sorry.
I know I mixed those two as well. Or is it like actually that being in the suit and going from little to big to real big to subatomic to normal size is actually like messing with his body? So I would like to see them revisit that, hopefully. But
Yeah.
I don't know if we're gonna get another Ant-Man movie, honestly. So he's had his 3. That's generally the
Thor had 4.
yeah, but that's Thor.
And I think Ant-Man might actually be part of the like.
Well, right. I'm not
leaders
saying
of
he's
the
not
Avengers
in
now.
another movie. I'm just
Yeah,
saying
well,
we may
yeah,
not
he'll-
get another specific.
He'll obviously be in
Ant-Man
the
movie.
Avengers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I think he's going to be leading the charge of this next
Oh,
phase.
probably, yeah.
Because I mean, who
I mean,
else
who's
do you
left?
have?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, technically Thor, but we know that Chris Hemsworth is pretty much done with movies at the moment. I don't really, I can't really think of anybody
Yeah.
else that would be leading the charge right now.
Yeah. I mean, the new Captain
Sam
America.
Wilson.
But
I don't see him as a leader per se. I think Ant-Man is going to be like the new Iron Man of the series,
sure.
where he's leading but not leading, whereas the new Captain America, Sam Wilson, is going to be the Raha, let's go get him
Yeah.
kind of
Fair point.
character, and Scott's going to be the smart one with all the technology and everything. So.
Mm-hmm.
Which will be interesting. Okay, so they break into PIM Technologies.
Yep.
PIM Technologies. The whole point is to fry all the servers, blow up the building,
Right.
steal the yellow jacket suit. The whole time, Luis is like, I'm a refined criminal now. We're not going to kill anybody. There's collateral damage that can happen, but we don't have to kill them. Which does come back later when the building's about to explode, and he's running by a room that he's stashed a knocked out body, and he's like, oh crap, and he like gets him out, which is hilarious.
Yep.
That whole like heist with not even with Scott and Hope, with everybody else in the crew,
Yes.
that was hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
Between them, Ti stealing the detective car and driving off and crashing it, to them getting arrested in the van, all that whole part was fantastic. I thought it was interesting, and I guess I've never fried servers before, but there's a lot of electricity in that room frying the servers.
Yeah. Well, those ants, like they talked about, can carry an electrical current. They just kind of like, they had a device that passed it through each other and chained them together. But yeah, that was a lot of electricity there. So
yeah. And
it was a big server room. It did not look that big when they first went in there, but then it kind of went on for a ways.
Yeah.
So
That's I'm just thinking about like how much that costs to maintain
Oh man,
from an IT perspective.
it doesn't matter. It's all gone now. So,
I mean, a server is expensive,
right,
like
and then to have
in the
like
rack itself, but those racks were completely full.
yeah,
I'm just like, good lord.
and you have servers for different things.
And
But,
you got to think you got network like the
right,
networking aspect of it. So you got
hmm
some network racks in
and you
there
have
and stuff,
data servers, and
yeah,
especially data servers. But
in that building, yeah.
yeah, and is there no kind of like defense against static and like electricity passing through them? Like I know like some
Well, I
have
mean,
like
you have
fire
suppression.
suppressants.
Yeah,
And,
the
like,
fire suppression should have immediately like
I mean,
kicked
something
off.
kicked it. I feel like you would also have like surge protectors or stuff that would prevent it from. I don't know, but maybe
Yeah.
that was the device on the back of the ant that bypassed that. I don't know.
Where's the fire suppression in this?
I mean, there was not really a fire, but
but it should have detected.
it should have smoked at least if stuff was getting like popped and fried.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's a good point.
So Ant-Man goes in to get the Yellow Jacket suit,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where Cross is there and is like, haha, I got it. And then goes through his whole evil villain plan
Oh
about
yeah,
how
the typical evil villain.
Hydra is going to
Yep.
buy this technology, and Hank, I'm about to kill you, and Hope, I didn't want to kill you yet. I knew you were at his house, but like I wasn't ready to kill you because I went there to kill Hank first, and I couldn't do it at the same time. And I'm just like, oh my God, just get on with your plan, dude.
Right.
You don't have to explain. We all know your plan at this point.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Scott breaks out of the containment, and they have a fight. Cross gets away with most of Hydra back in their chopper.
Yeah.
The building explodes with nobody in it because, well, Hank and Hope almost were still in it, but they got away in that tank,
Yeah.
the keychain tank. And this is where you start seeing things get large,
Right.
because the whole movie you see everything get small, but now
Mhm.
everything's getting large. Scott escapes on his aunt Antony, which I thought was amazing name,
Right.
by the way, Antony. I thought the whole time, and then of course Antony dies. Poor Antony.
Yep.
Because Cross kills him. So they get into a fight on the chopper. They fall out into a pool. They have this whole fight. Scott finally kicks him to the bug zapper, thinking
Yep.
that okay, maybe he might be dead. Then of course he gets arrested by the ex-wife's
Well, and
fiance.
how did they get there that quick?
so quickly.
Like, because the family went to call 911 because they tell like the girl to call 911, and Darren zaps the phone.
And you would think that,
And that whole fight took like maybe 15 seconds.
yeah. And you
If
would
that.
think that if you are focused solely on this building exploding and what's going on there,
Right.
how do you go across town and you're the first officers on scene?
Yeah, because that helicopter was moving obviously pretty quick, and it covered
And
a lot
far.
of ground.
I mean, just
like,
literally flying a short period of time.
based on pure
gets
science,
you-
it was going to be faster than the car.
Yeah.
Like,
Like
I don't know.
miles away. And
Yeah.
they're the first people on scene to arrest him? That doesn't make any
no,
sense.
it doesn't. But
And now they don't even care about this building. They're like, oh, I'm bringing you in.
Yeah.
Like,
it's that dude's ego trip.
priorities, man. Priorities.
And you never hear anything about his sidekick. He always has a sidekick, and I don't even know if the guy says a word in the movie.
He says things.
Okay.
It's small
Yeah.
things, but he says some stuff.
I just know he's always around, but he's
Yeah.
not really doing anything.
So they hear that there's a 240, I believe is what the code was, at basically his house, the detective's house, and they immediately like, Cassie. So they go flying, or not flying, but driving towards that house. The whole time Scott's like, you gotta let me out, I know what's going on. And they're like, no, stay in the car. He gets out because he gets the helmet on and shrinks. Obviously Yellow Jacket is in Cassie's room waiting for Scott to come. They have a fight on the little train track set, which was funny.
Yeah. That was great.
That whole scene. And then eventually, I mean, they fight to the point where Scott is tiny. Was he hurt? I can't remember exactly, but he was basically about to kill. Cross was about to kill the detective and Cassie. And Scott was like, well, I can't get into the suit, so I'm going to go subatomic, destroy his suit from the inside, and basically pull him until he obliterates. And that's when you think Cross is dead.
Yes.
He's gone forever. You'll never see him again until Quantumania.
Yeah. Which I watched that scene very closely because they made a big deal about that in Quantumania, and there was nothing I could find that made it look like he died. Like, you saw his arms
nothing
kind of
splattered.
nothing splattered. He just
which
squished
actually
up.
I looked at that very closely too, because you see his arms like going into his body, and I'm like, like he had little arms and little feet.
Yeah.
Did he just get crushed into his head and then boom?
Yeah, you never really see his head because by the time it gets to his head, it's all just and then he's gone. So
and the suit is gold. I mean, well, I guess they gave him a different suit in Quantumania. Yeah, I mean, that was certainly interesting, but yeah, he gets pulled in the quantum realm. This is where I mentioned, like, when he's starting to go through the quantum realm, you start seeing all the figures and the graphics from Quantumania, but then he goes into that, like, Mirrorverse and all the other things, so it makes you wonder, is there a quantum realm inside the quantum realm?
I don't know, or did he go deeper than the quantum realm, or was he... I wouldn't think he would have gone deeper, because, like we talked about earlier, he could still hear Cassie's voice, and that's kind of what brings him
kicks
back.
him out. Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well, I also wondered because when he got out, Hank was talking like, "Do you remember anything?" And Scott was like, "I don't remember anything." And I'm like,
"But he was conscious the whole time, and he made actions, and he had the wherewithal to be like, okay, I have a blue disc that makes me bigger. Let me open the regulator, put it in there, like." And
that's what they use later to get Janet out of the quantum realm once they go find her. But it made me think. In Quantumania, when they got out of the quantum realm, they remembered everything that happened. Because he remembered that King said, if I don't get out, there's more of me coming. Which gives him that, like, epilogue of, like, oh, God, did I just kill everybody? So I'm like, if he didn't remember what happened in the quantum realm for that little bit of time, how does he remember, how do they all remember what happened?
Yeah. And maybe it's more so it happened so fast that
he just didn't really think.
Or
this was all brand new to him. It's
right.
like, oh my God, this is what's going on. And so that was interesting.
And it was probably the furthest thing from his mind of like, okay, I need to remember everything I've seen. Like he was trying to get back. So I don't know, but yeah, part of me is like, did they think they were going to make something more in the Quantum Mania or Quantum Realm when they made this movie? Like, was that in their minds when they made this, or was it like, okay, we brought up this thing, now let's do something with it? Because the parts were like, the Quantum Realm parts were close, but they weren't like exactly what we see in Quantum Mania. So I don't know.
So I have a question for you.
Okay.
Where was Stan Lee in this movie?
Oh, I knew you were gonna ask that. Oh, and I told myself I'd remember this. So
it's
I
like
didn't
at the end too.
Yeah, hold on, give me a minute.
Because him and Luis go at the very, very end.
Right.
They're talking, and Luis is basically saying that his friend told a friend was told by another friend,
and they went to the art gallery,
that the Falcon was looking for a little man that shrinks. And in that whole epilogue, or in that whole, like...
Oh, was he a bartender?
He was a bartender,
okay, that's right. Because the friend is on the date with the journalist that meets with Sam Wilson. Okay. Yep.
And Luis is talking through Stanley's... like, with Stanley.
Yes.
But the whole time, when Sam was meeting with that girl on the bench, she mentioned stuff like, we have a guy that, like, climbs, we have a guy that swings. She was talking about Spider-Man.
Right.
I don't know if you caught that.
No, I did.
I was like, she's talking about Spider-Man.
Well, but I wonder if she was talking about different people, because she was like, we have a guy that swings, we have a guy that climbs, like, we have a guy that shrinks, like, kind of thing. So
I don't think she mentioned the shrink part, because he was like, I'm looking for a guy that shrinks. And she was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where, so the whole time, Sam is now looking for him.
Which you figure out with one of the post-credit scenes, kind of.
Yes, because one of the post-credit scenes is actually taking place during Civil War.
Which that was very trippy, because I was watching it and I was like, wait a
I was like,
minute.
did I miss a movie?
Yeah, I was like, why did this just put me into this next movie? And then I was like, no, it didn't. This is a post-credit scene. So.
Yeah. So the post-credit scene was Winter Soldier captured and sitting there. Sam and Steve are in the room, and Sam, God, what was going on? It was they were trying to knock him out of it, or they basically knew that they were about to start like a civil war.
Right.
And Sam was like, I know a guy.
Yeah, and I feel like this is the first time that we've seen a post-credit scene that's like in the middle of another movie. Like most of the time, the post-credit scenes are like, oh, this is going to segue into a movie. But like this one was like, this happens at the very middle of Civil War. So yeah, it was very, very different.
Yeah. So next week is Captain America Civil War.
Yep.
So we'll talk about that movie here next week. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast. Subscribe on YouTube. And if you want to get in contact with us, timelinerewatch@gmail.com. Hit us up on social media at timelinerewatch. And be sure to leave us a comment on a podcast app if you're on Apple Podcast or any of those.
We did
other
forget
apps.
one thing.
Oh, no.
At the end of the movie, Hank reveals that Hope now has a suit.
Oh, yeah.
And that's how Ant-Man and the Wasp becomes the second movie.
Was that the second post-credit scene?
I think it was just at the end of the movie. Yeah, it was at the end of the movie. But yes, he reveals that he and Janet were working on this suit for Janet, but then he said, now I realize we were actually working on it for you. So Hope gets her suit, and that's what leads to the next movie.
Which is yellow, whereas
it's like
Hope's
black and yellow.
suit,
Yeah.
Hope's suit was the same as Ant-Man's suit. They had like literally the identical suits.
Yep.
But hers could fly, so she was a flying ant. Now Hope will be a wasp.
Yeah.
So. All right.
Yeah.
Until next week. Have a good one.